Hi, I'm Jennifer Fox with Music Educator Resources, and today is Music Teacher Tip number 33. So thanks for joining me. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about teaching SMART goals. So if you're not familiar with SMART goals, it's an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And SMART goals is something that I have been using with my students for years. I don't know how long now, but for years. And the reason I like them is because it breaks up the goal into action steps. And of course, as we know, without action steps, the goal is just a wish, right? It's just something like, oh, I want to lose weight. But if there's no action steps to that goal, it just doesn't happen. And so that's what I want my students to do is make sure they put some action behind the goal that they're setting. Now, sometimes with students, the reason why I want to talk specifically about not just goal setting, but how to teach SMART goals to students is because sometimes that gets a little tricky and they're not sure, first of all, what goal they should have. Um, Besides, I want to get better or I need to practice more. Those are the typical two things that they might think about. But how to break those into SMART goals and how to get them thinking of how to answer some of those questions. So let's go through specific first. With specific, of course, this is the initial what they want to accomplish. And I tell them it's not enough to say, I want to get better, I want to play better. We have to get a little bit more specific with that. And so I'm going to be going through examples here in a minute, but um, so let's just think specifics in regards to their goal setting. I want to practice more, um, or I want to get better. I might say, okay, how about in regards to I want to practice more, I want to be more consistent in my practicing each week. Or I want to get better, meaning I want to improve my skills and um, in a way where maybe, they need to be thinking of what are they lacking in their skills? Is it their sight reading? Is it their artistry? Things like that. So that's going to narrow it down a little bit more. So that's where the specific comes in. And then measurable is how are they going to track this? How are they going to keep track of their progress with this goal? Now, if it's a practice goal, that's usually easier to track. They can have a practice chart that they can track. If they use Tanara like my students do, it just tracks it for them as long as they log in and press that start practice button. It will track the practice that they're working on. If it's more, I want to get better at my sight reading. So a way to track this is, again, they could create a chart and have a goal of maybe sight read 5 pieces a day or at least 1 piece a day or something, whatever their goal is. It's totally between you and them. And then so measurable is pretty easy to figure out as far as how to track. And then attainable tends to be a little trickier. They're not sure what this word means. And so I tell them this is really where those action steps come into place. So for example, if their goal is I want to be more consistent in my practicing, then they will need to remember to mark, you know, first of all, they'll need to remember to practice. So maybe an action step attainable would be to set an alarm, a daily alarm, a practice alarm, and then logging into Tanara and making sure that happens. And more of the steps that they're going to take so they can attain that goal and make it a habit if it isn't already, which most likely it might not be. um, and then relevant, of course, seems pretty obvious because that's the goal, of course, is relevant. So it's asking questions, why do they want to practice more? How is this relevant to their specific goal? And how is this relevant to improving piano or whatever instrument they're doing? That kind of thing. So, and of course, relevancy is to get better, right? And then timely is the deadline. So we always want to have a deadline to that they can look towards and keep measured progress. Again, kind of goes back to that measurable of, you know, when they're going to check themselves and say, hey, did I accomplish this goal by this date? And how am I doing? Do I need to set a new goal? And how will that goal change? That kind of thing. I usually have my students create new goals in January. It's just a perfect time because the new year, and we're halfway through the year as well. And so I like to have them do that in January and get some thinking. So usually the goal wouldn't be any longer, the deadline wouldn't be any longer than the end of the semester before we start our summer and everything. So that gives you an idea. And I wanted to also just go through some of my student examples of goals that they have set, that they wrote down, and how they broke it up after we went through it. And of course, I have a worksheet. If you're watching this and you're not in my blog already, make sure you go to musiceducatorresources.com and look for this teacher tip and find the blog post, because I do have some free resources that you can download, one being a worksheet that I have students fill out. Anyway, so this was a student. I think she's about 10 years old now. And her specific was to practice piano 5 days a week, 30 minutes until summer break. So that was her specific. Measurable was using a chart to mark off days. And my students actually have a chart in addition to Tonara that they can physically mark something, and they can also use Tonara. And then attainable is plan each week on Sunday. I thought that was great. That was perfect. It was an action step, how to go about, it's a weekly check basically. And relevant is making me a lot better at piano, and timely ways use chart until the end of the semester. So I thought that was a wonderful example from a 10-year-old. And then another one, this one is from, I think also she is 10 as well. She said, I want to understand a song and get the song right, was her specific goal. Measurable, I'll track my progress anytime and you'll never know till you think you got it. That was cute. Attainable, I want to play a hard song and pass the song. So relevant, practice every day and focus. And timely, this year I need to read my lessons and do piano every day. And that was something I'm glad she wrote down, because that was something I talked about, is she tends to not read her lesson assignments. And so when she comes to lessons, she's like, well, I didn't know I had that. And I'm like, it was written down. You don't check your assignment. Make sure very first thing you do when you sit down and practice is check your assignment. And, because I write down tips and all this kind of stuff. So I love that she added that in there. Okay, so another one. This one is from one of my younger students, as you can tell. And I wanted to give this an example because I think it's important for our young students. I think she's around 6. And of what you can do with them as far as setting goals. When they're writing things down, they don't have to write these full-on sentences. So her specific, she told me that she wanted to play a trio with her sisters. She's a triplet, so she has 2 other sisters the same age and everything. And matter of fact, they all had the same goal. So specific was learn a trio with their sisters. Measurable was that they were going to practice together. Attainable was also practice. And then relevant was, learning music with her sisters. That was relevant. And then timely was to learn it by May. And so I thought this is a good example of just keeping it simple, 1 or 2 words, and we knew exactly what her goal and her sister's goals were. Okay, let's see. I'll just share maybe a couple more. Okay, so this one is from One of my students, I think she's in 8th grade. I'm pretty sure this is she's a freshman in high school. So hers is, I want to play higher level pieces and more classics. Her measurable is, I know I will have achieved this when I can play the song. So I love that measurable. And attainable, I will ask my teachers for songs she recommends. I will then proceed to practice the said piece until I can play it. Relevant, by doing this, I can allow myself to get accustomed to playing more challenging pieces. And then timely, I will track this by weekly practices. There's no set deadline. So that's something that she can have an ongoing goal as she is in her lessons. And then the last one is from an 8th grader. She said, specific is learn Hollywood Nights piece on time. So she knows that she tends to procrastinate when it comes to performing pieces, learning the pieces that she's going to perform. So she knew that specific, that on time was important to include. And then measurable, record each day or practice and be able to play fluently. So I love that she added the record option where she can check herself and measure her progress. Attainable, as long as I keep track of time and not procrastinate, I will be able to do this. And then relevant, yes, it will help me learn time management and reduce my procrastination, which is pretty bad. And then timely, I will track my goal in Sonata. So I just wanted to kind of give you some student examples of the goals that they set and how they broke them up and how it was relevant to them, and something that most likely, because they broke it out this way, they know exactly the steps that they need to take over the next few months. And hopefully they'll be able to accomplish their goals a little bit better. And, you know, because goals are a tricky thing. It's one thing to just say it, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to improve on, but it's a whole other thing to actually do it. And so I think these SMART goals that I do with my students make such a big difference. But one other thing that I wanted to also mention is it's important for you as a teacher to look at these goals occasionally with your students. I always put them in the front of their binder and review and say, hey, how are you coming along with this goal? What are you doing? What can we do better? What can you do better? Do I need to help you with anything? Anything like that, to give them that further support so they're not, they don't forget about it, and that they can be successful with it. Remember, setting goals is a life skill. It's something that is going to benefit them for the rest of their life if they can learn how to do it correctly. So I hope this teacher tip was helpful for you, and Happy New Year. And I look forward to more teaching tips this year, and I will see you next time. Bye.